Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more the state governments and its officials 2025-2026. Today we're looking at the next alphabetical state, Alaska, which is also the 49th state admitted into the Union. Anyway, Alaska, as per its website, says the state of Alaska employs approximately 15,000 employees statewide, and they work primarily for the executive branch of the state government. And its Alaska state government is divided into three separate entities, much like we have already discussed with Alabama and the U.S. federal government. And these were established in the Alaska Constitution. The three branches: executive, legislative, and judicial branches. In the executive branch, it is the largest branch and is headed by an elected governor and lieutenant governor. And the governor is the chief executive officer of the state and is responsible for the faithful execution of laws and public programs enacted and funded by the legislative branch. 14 state departments carry out these various duties. So they have a lot of sub-cabinet departments. Or sub-president, no. A lot of cabinet departments. That's one thing I forgot to look up, was cabinet. I knew I would be forgetting something. Alaska. I looked and I was like, I think I've got everything. Not cabinets. I'm not looking to buy a cabinet. I'm looking for... Now that they want to sell me cabinets. No, I want to know who are the cabinet members in Alaska, but apparently it won't tell me. I tried to pull it up on Wikipedia, but it wouldn't tell me exactly who it is either. So anyway, the governor appoints commissioners to head most departments. The exceptions are the Departments of Education and Early Development and the Department of Fish and Game, whose commissioners are appointed by their respective boards and commissions and then approved by the governor. So, remember, Alabama had multiple people that could be elected in the executive branch. Your governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state. No, it wasn't secretary of state, I don't think. But attorney general, and they had like two or three. No, secretary of state was one. But there was a good number, about 8, I believe, total, that was elected in the executive branch. Apparently in Alaska, the only ones that are elected in the executive branch, governor and lieutenant governor. The majority of Alaska state employees are within these 14 departments, and they are involved in the state government operating and providing public services. Most of the positions held by these employees comprise the state classified service as defined by Alaska Statute 39.25. The legislative branch is responsible for enacting laws of the state of Alaska and appropriating the money necessary to operate the government. Alaska has a bicameral legislature composed of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Much like the United States Congress, Alabama's Congress, the House of Representatives is composed of 40 members elected from 40 election districts for 2-year terms, and the Senate has 20 members elected from 20 Senate districts for 4-year terms, with 1/2 of the membership standing for election every 2 years, so they stagger their elections. House and Senate election districts are determined on the basis of population. Under the state constitution, redistricting is accomplished every 10 years. So again, they take a lot from the Constitution. Redistricting every 10 years. Districts are decided in size by the population. So yeah. An advisory redistricting board is appointed by and assists the governor in redistricting the state. And judicial branch. There are 4 levels of courts in the Alaska court system, each with different powers, duties, and responsibilities. Alaska has a unified, centrally administered, and totally state-funded judicial system. Municipal governments do not maintain separate court systems. 4 levels of courts in the Alaska system are the Supreme Court at the top, the Court of Appeals, the Superior Court, and the District Court. And the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals are appellate courts. Courts you appeal upwards to. While the superior and district courts are trial courts. Jurisdiction and responsibilities of each level of court are set out in Title 22 of Alaska statutes. Supreme Court and Superior Court were established in the Alaska Constitution in 1959, the year it became a state. And the legislature created a district court for each judicial district and granted power to the Supreme Court to increase and decrease the number of district court judges. So that's interesting. The Supreme Court can kind of decide if they need more district court judges or not. In 1980, the legislature created the Court of Appeals. The Chief Justice of the Alaska Supreme Court is the administrative head of the Alaska court system. An administrative director is appointed by the Chief Justice in concurrence with the Supreme Court. The director supervises the administration of all courts in the state. Rules concerning the administration of all courts and rules of practice and procedure for civil and criminal cases are promulgated by the Supreme Court. So, a decent overview of the state here. Let's go ahead and look at the executive branch. We have Governor Mike Dunleavy. I believe he used to be a Congress member federally. I could have swore I've seen the name as like a member of Congress. Let's go since 78. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but yeah, Mike Dunleavy is your governor, and lieutenant governor is Nancy Dahlstrom. So those are the elected members of your executive branch. Now, like I said, they do have a cabinet. They have the departments listed here, but they didn't list who is the current people in those departments. Try to pull it up. Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. Well, we got one there. So let's do that. The cabinet, you have the Department of Administration, and it seems to be headed by a Paula Vrana. You have the Department of Commerce, Community, and Economic Development, which is headed by Julie Sand. You have the Department of Corrections. And remember, these are all appointed. And it is run by a Jen Winkleman. Now you have a Department of Education and Early Development, which, if you remember, is not technically appointed by the governor. There's others who appoint them, and the governor must approve them. So for Education and Early Development, it is run by I don't know who it's run by. Not in the United States. Alaska. Yeah. They don't list who it's supposed to be, so I don't know what to tell you on that one. Department of Environmental Conservation. And it is run by as of 2022 a Jason W. Brune. Department of Fish and Game, which is the other one the governor had to approve and not appoint, is run by a Douglas Vincent Lang. Department of Health and Social Services, not know. It doesn't say. Department of Labor and Workforce Development. It's run by Catherine Munoz, who is the acting commissioner. It doesn't say commissioner, it says acting, so temporarily appointed to take over. We don't know if there'll be a more permanent appointment or not. Department of Law, I would assume the Attorney General. That's what it's called, yeah. Currently is a Stephen J. Cox, Alaska Attorney General for the Department of Law. Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. And that is run by not seeing a name. Department's head is known as the Adjutant General of Alaska. They tell some past adjutant generals, but they don't list the current, which is a disappointment. Yeah, it doesn't list it. Okay, well. Department of Natural Resources. It is run by John Boyle. Department of Public Safety. Run by a James Cockrell, and he has a deputy commissioner, Brian Barlow. Usually these don't work, the red links. Alaska Department of Revenue, but that worked. Well, no, it's not showing anything of note here. So we'll close that one down, and the Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. That is supposedly run by Ryan Anderson. Now, that's the executive branch. That said, let's hop over here to the legislative branch. We've kind of discussed it already, but yeah, 20 senators, 40 representatives. And you're looking at it and you're like, it says 6, but then 5 Republican here as well for the coalitions. Notice the difference in the color, pink and red. That's because, let me find this little noting here. Unlike many other state legislative chambers in the U.S., both houses of the Alaska State Legislature have a long-standing tradition of majority caucuses encompassing members of both Republicans and Democrats. Democrats caucusing with the majority are colloquially known as Bush Democrats, a reference to the Alaskan Bush country, not part of the Bush dynasty of presidents in the U.S. Bush Democrats, it means Democrats from the back country and everything like that. Members of the minority party caucusing with the majority are treated as members of the majority for purposes of committee assignments and caucus meetings. So, yeah. At this point, it essentially means that they work together to form their own coalitions. So while there are 11 total Republican, 5 work with these Democrats to make a total of 14 versus 6. In the House, 40 total seats. 14 Democrats work with 5 independents and 2 Republicans for a total of 21 versus the 19 Republicans. So yeah. They do have a Senate President and House Speaker, who are the heads of each chamber. But yeah. And then we get a look at the courts. The Alaska court system. You have the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, the Superior Courts, District Courts. What we've all talked about so far: Supreme, Appeals, Superior Districts, Magistrate Courts. This is the one they're kind of leaving out because they don't do near as much. It's more of the day-to-day stuff. They can issue writs, marriage licenses, summons, arrest and search warrants, and notarizations. They can also handle preliminary proceedings in criminal cases. So while they don't do the bulk of the actual trials and stuff like that, they can assign the warrants. They can do the small-time stuff, making marriage licenses legal, notarizing documents, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we go up and you have the district courts. They hear misdemeanor criminal cases and civil cases where the amount in controversy is less than $100,000, and have historically been Alaska's busiest courts. It also judges, or their judges also issue arrest warrants and search warrants, and handle arraignments, and may also serve as coroners, hold inquests, and record vital statistics. The superior courts are for trials of general jurisdiction. They hear, the court hears appeals from the district court. So it can be appealed to a superior court, but in general, they do more than just small time. It's not fair really to call it small time, but misdemeanor criminal and civil cases, they'll likely hear your felony cases and stuff. Superior, or the Court of Appeals, Intermediate Court of Appeals for criminal cases, and is composed of a chief judge and 2 assistant judges, 3-judge panel. Chief judge of the Court of Appeals is selected from among the 3 of the selected from the 3 by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to serve a 2-year term. The Court of Appeals has jurisdiction to hear appeals from judgments in criminal cases and certain other quasi-criminal cases in which a minor is accused of committing a crime, juvenile delinquency cases, cases in which prisoners are challenging the legality of their confinement, habeas corpus, due process, post-conviction relief matters, the cases involving probation and parole decisions. Also, a defendant in a criminal case who appeals from district court to superior court can ask the Court of Appeals to review the resulting decision of the superior court, but the Court of Appeals may, in its discretion, refuse to hear the appeal, which is not an uncommon thing. The Supreme Court picks and chooses its cases it wants to hear. Otherwise, their docket would be full all the time. And the Alaska Supreme Court is composed of the Chief Justice and 4 Associate Justices, a 5-judge panel. They choose one of their own members to serve a 3-year term as Chief Justice. The decisions of the Alaska Supreme Court are binding on all other Alaska state courts. So again, like the U.S. Supreme Court is dominant to all other federal courts, Alaska Supreme Court dominant to all other Alaska courts. And the only other courts that may reverse or modify those decisions are U.S. federal courts. Supreme Court of Alaska hears appeals from lower state courts and also administers the state's judicial system. The Alaska Supreme Court is required to hear appeals in civil cases in the first instance and is not able to exercise its discretion whether to consider appeals previously heard in other appellate courts. So, with its court system, it's a little different from what I am aware, because on the national level, the federal level, it's still the president who assigns the lower court judges. It isn't Supreme Court judges who do it, it's president. Or those working for the president. But yeah, this has been a look at the government of Alaska. With that, we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.